Yeah, I mean, that's all we really could hope for. As quite frankly, in preseason 1, that was the disappointment. But now we have an interview ready for us with the 2 finalists. And we're going to have Peter give us the translations with Cool and Neal.
Yeah, Cool, you've had such a great match today, getting to that 80 points first, and you proved your season once again. How do you feel? Well, first of all, to make it to the finals, I've shown a lot of performance by getting that first place a lot, but this time I've given up on that first place consecutively and just going for the points, and I feel like it went so well, so I'm really happy. You showed such a great form this season that it might have been a bit pressuring to keep that up, but I'm glad you were not pressured by that at all. And next up, I want to ask you, Neal, along with preseason 1 and 2, you made it to the final top 2 once again, but players like Hero and SUNGBIN, there were players like that that really made it.
在季前赛第1季和第2季之后，你又第3次走进了最后的单挑环节，但这次 Hero 选手和成斌选手和你的分数差距是非常相似的，所以请讲一下晋级到最后环节的想法吧。
其实大概跑5、6张图的时候，我就知道我会晋级了，所以我采取了一些比较表演性质的跑法，能晋级也很开心。
사실
To be honest, out of the 5, 6 tracks when they were done, I felt already at that point that I could make it to that top 2. So I went for a bit of performance plays once I felt I was safe in my standing. But now that I'm up here, I'm going to try my best. Well, it's your veterancy showing up that you're able to pull out these performance plays in such a high-pressure stage as well. And now next up, I want to ask you, Cool. It was a competitive field of solos, but now once again, your opponent is Neal, and you guys know each other so well. And recently, based on what Neal was able to show off in the solos, I feel like you might be feeling a bit confident against Neal tonight. How do you feel? Well, up until preseason 1 and 2, he made it to that top 2 in both the solos finals. So watching those moments, I learned a lot from Neal, and I also thought into how I should maneuver around 1v1ing Neal, and I'm still thinking about that right now. Cool, you are showing a lot of respect for your opponent here, and along with Neal, I am sure that Neal respects Cool as a player as well. Well, how do you feel knowing about Cool? You know him well, but this season he's just so much stronger, it feels like.
相信载荷选手也是你非常尊敬的一个对象，但他在这个赛季变得更加强大了，所以你在个人赛的最终环节中会以怎样的决心去面对呢？
我会把对手当成我自己，而不是载荷选手，因为先这段。
저는 모든 상대를 제 자신이라고 생각하고 그냥 단순
I'm the biggest opponent of myself.
一直以来我都可以做到90分、95分，但是一直做不到100分。这一次我会更加努力，做到最好。
Well, to be honest, as for a review on myself, I feel like I judge myself around 90 to 95 points out of 100, because I feel like I haven't been able to show 100% of my all, but this time around I'll try my best to get in my top form, maybe getting the 100. Well, I can relate really to your situation there, Neal. And I have one last question for you here, Cool. Last season, it was just 1 point difference that stopped you from making it to the top 2 finalists of solos. But this time, you were able to make it here without much trouble. How do you feel? Well, I feel like I said earlier that there's only 2 hours left before I win. Now I think there's only 1 hour left till I win. I wish you the best on that, Cool. And I have one last question for you, Neal. You were the runner-up twice in the solos and the runner-up for the team twice. That was your beginning.
我们在季前赛中得到2次个人赛亚军和团体赛亚军，我相信这是为了通往决赛冠军的一条必备之路。最后，请讲一下你的决心吧。
제호 선수는 이번 우승은 제가 맡겠습니다.
This victory I will take for myself.
정확하게 본인의 포부를 밝혀준 만큼
Neal
멋진 경기 보여줄 수
showed
있을지
such a clear message to his opponent, Cool, here today. We'll be looking forward to an exciting matchup between them. And now the match begins to find out the grand winner, the champion of the solos finals.
Cool and Neal.
These are the two that we've seen in the preseason one. They are back here for the regular season, Will, and we can't be more excited to see that rematch happen between the two players. And Cool, he's been the leading player up in set one, so he's gonna have an advantage in draft today. We'll see how that turns out for him.
Yeah, we'll have to wait and see, because in preseason one, Neal, of course, got those 80 points, had the draft advantage, and then Cool just came in, went for the sweep with 3-0.
1v1 match, it's decided in just one round, but now this is going to be a true test of skill for both Cool and Neal here today.
All right, we are getting ready to check out what our first round is going to be. A 1v1 between Cool and Neal. I imagine every opponent is a better version of myself. We'll see how that pans out. As ladies and gentlemen, we are only a few tracks away from crowning our first champion as it kicks off on Forest Zigzag Timberland. And the final 1v1 begins with Cool continuing the yellow stripes, Neal in the black stripes, and both of them going for these aggressive cuts off the get-go. Neal gets a decent lead here in the very first lap of Zigzag Timberland.
That is definitely a phenomenal lead that Neal has built for himself right now, but when it comes to Cool, I always believe in this guy to be able to catch up, so I'm excited to see what kind of maneuvers Cool pull for us here as we see the heart rates, both players sitting at about the equal amount.
Yeah, I mean, you know, there's a little bit of adrenaline going on, but nothing too crazy here between Neal and Cool, of course. I mean, even though they are both storied players, to be able to have that title of inaugural champion, and of course, this is the one chance you get to have that Royal Rotor title in the KDL as we just kicked off. That's going to be huge as Cool finding that opportunity. You have to remember, in a 1v1, you don't have other opponents to rely on getting those drafts, so it really comes down to getting a better build if you have to catch up.
It does seem to me right now that Neal has a slight advantage in the booster gauge, so he just really needs to time that draft timing. So Neal is really just making sure he is focused on continually building up the booster gauge he needs.
Yeah, and he's able to take a couple closer, tight turns to make sure he's back in draft range. Now, Cool, a nice block and stop on that one, but Neal will just break away and say, you know what, I will pass you first before going for those extra cuts. Now, Cool timing that draft off of the jump, but Neal with a good block. It's a good read in his rear view mirror.
Yeah, that was a really aggressive play from Neal, and it played out really well. Now, Cool, he tried to catch up, but he was lacking a little bit just there. Now, you can see Cool, he's holding on to 2 nitrous boosts. He's going to go for it once again, but Neal getting that read on Cool's line.
Yeah, one more draft here. Cool finds the opportunity, realizes Neal is going a bit too far wide, and off the draft, Cool will be taking the first space right back in his favor. Now, draft still coming in plenty of favor. Quite a few turns still left here in Zigzag Timberland. We're still a few meters away from those hairpins.
The drafts are constantly being exchanged here, but Cool manages to just stick to a straight line there, and he gets the lead. Now he continues to block Neal off here once again. Neal does have a better maintenance on his booster right now as he pops one there. Cool, he went for a tight line, and Neal, he didn't manage to pass by.
Yeah, it has to be all this defense because of the hairpins, and Neal, he couldn't find an opening, but here on the draft, can he push him out? Neal, he does, but he has to recover. He has to make sure he gets the block, and he's barely going to be able to do so as he's able to break away and cross that finish line in a split of a second. Plenty of blocks, plenty of drafts, 8 apiece. In fact, it just goes to show how much they were trying to just gauge the opponent's style here and their build, trying to find those openings, making sure they're not relying on just one final Hail Mary. They realize both of them are such good racers that they cannot rely on that one wild card at the very end of each track. The next track, Cool, what's going to be just as it was in the final 8. He's going to bring us right back to World Tour Terracotta Twister here for track number 2.
And the race kicks off in the round 2 of our final set 2 1v1. Cool, he's shown us some great play in Terracotta Twister today. In fact, he's picked it twice in set number 1, as we see Cool taking some really tight lines there, barely managing to not fall out.
Yeah, I think Neal's starting to realize that Cool will go for these defensive maneuvers, so he's trying to pressure Cool into taking, veering away from his own build, and then taking an outer line or an inner line, depending on the movement from Cool, to try to pass it by, but this time Cool not giving an opportunity yet. Here in the first lap, we enter the tombs now. Quite a bit of distance. Neal not going to have too many opportunities. He just wants to make sure he stays in range for draft as they exit the tunnels.
Neal definitely playing it safe. I love that attempt from him here. Cool. Also just going to focus on his own build for the time being, but a beautiful cut there from Neal. He's able to cut a lot of that distance closer now.
Yep, and going to have a couple more drafts now, so Cool just trying to make sure he gets a read on Neal's position. But look at this, yeah, Cool reacts to every single positional change from Neal. So Neal just trying to find one more opportunity. A nice draft that finds that inner corner there against Cool. Tries to get a couple blocks, but Cool will be able to recover first place for the time being. Loses quite a bit of top speed, but Neal, does he find an opening? He can get the drafts all he wants, but if Cool can get the stops like he does right now, it's not going to matter. And now the distance created a bit further here from Cool.
An excellent block from Cool there, just as you said it will. Now there's so much distance for Neal that you gotta imagine the pressure must be building up. And earlier today, Cool has shown us so much different maneuvers here in the tomb section. Once again, Neal, his Hail Mary play didn't work out as Cool blocked him out.
It looked like Neal potentially wanted to go for the spin turn, but he finds a nice opening as Cool. Maybe a just bit too relaxed as he thinks there's a bit extra distance. The draft comes in. Neal, he needs to go for the stop, but it's a second too late. He doesn't have the angle he wants, and Cool with a nice block at the very last turn will reclaim first place, and now he gets the track victory, tying them up 1-1.
Applying so much pressure to them going into their lines.
Yeah, I mean, just take a look, right? Neal's constantly been in second place for the majority of that track, 11 drafts, and he didn't get too many passes compared to that. So Cool just playing really good defense. And it is going to be WKC Brazil Circuit. Okay, a bit of a field track, but of course we always talk about all those shortcuts and all the varieties that can happen. We'll find out here on track number 3, Brazil Circuit. Neal's choice of track 3 as he tries to get the lead back. Going to go for some aggressive cuts, even going right inside that cone, and he creates so much distance off of that extra boost right now away from Cool.
We're seeing a completely different play style between the two players, but the funny part is Neal is also leading right now in the booster gauge management. So Neal off to just the best start he could ask for here. Cool is in so much pressure to catch up right now.
Yeah, and Cool, he tried to take a closer turn on that first shortcut as well, but didn't find the angle he wanted, so he had to lose quite a bit of top speed. Still not in draft range. Neal, if he's just able to make sure that he stays ahead or at least equal on boost gauge, he should have a relatively safe race for at least the first lap and a half. Now Cool just trying to go for even closer turns on these shortcuts across the grass. He's closing the distance just barely, but still out of draft range.
That's how good Neal is. He's not giving up any distance for Cool to try to catch up. But somehow, Cool, he's able to cut across in such ways that he's now all the way up in first. How does Cool do it, Will?
Neal was not suspecting that, but you have to imagine it's the buildup, right? Cool cuts closer on every single shortcut throughout lap 1. And eventually that piles up because at the very end, those shortcuts, everyone has to take a very sharp turn anyway to lose that top speed, and Cool finds that opportunity, gets the drafts just in time. Now Neal in the same boat. He's just barely in range for a draft. Not going to be able to complete that one just yet. Trying to build up another as he's trying to create a little bit of that closed gap. Not going to be in range just yet, though.
The positions of our two racers have completely shifted from lap number 1. But this lap number 2 is the final lap, so Neal is really being forced right now, bring out all his strategies here as he maneuvers to get close enough to Cool, but not enough for a draft as it seems. Cool, he may be able to just hold on to this lead.
Cool just had such awareness. He knows that it's going to be the exact same position that Neal has an opportunity to get the draft.
This is the same thing that happened in round 2, I feel like, Will, where Cool, he's barely focusing on the drafts. Neal, he's been all about those drafts, but Cool, he's just able to read his opponent so well that he's found a new strategy that's worked so well.
Of the solos of KDL, including the preseasons, we'll see if he can tie things up as he chooses to take us to WKC Shanghai Circuit.
And the race kicks off in Neal's choice of track as it is match point for Cool right now. Cool just needs one more track win to become that inaugural champion you mentioned, Will. Neal, however, surprisingly, his heart rate is not that fast despite the pressure on him.
Yeah, it's actually been slowing down, perhaps because he's going to his track choice. He just wants to focus on his own races right now. Now, Neal, you gotta imagine he's just going through all the options in his head because he tried a couple tracks when he was just vying for an opportunity from behind, pressuring Cool. That didn't work out. Then he tried to get a hefty lead. That didn't work out either. So now he just realizes it has to come down to the mechanics. Tries to just get a better edge across Cool, across every single skirmish that they have. And Cool with another nice stop here in the middle of lap 1.
It feels like Cool is just constantly outmaneuvering Neal when it comes to these blocks, and Neal's got to find the response as Neal goes for some cuts himself, and you can see in the booster gauge, Cool is leading slightly at the moment.
Yeah, Neal just wanted to try to top things off, but not going to find the right tempo there. They're just going to even out in boost gauge. Neal with an early boost to try to catch up. Just gets the draft, but that's only to close the gap for the time being. You still need another one if you want to try to overtake Cool. Just a couple more opportunities as they go around these turns. Neal, he's closed the gap enough. Cool, will he go for another stop here? Does he take the risk? No, he's just going to play it safe around that jump.
It feels like Neal is looking for these angles every single time, but Cool is there with the response. This time, however, Neal manages to find that kryptonite.
The draft.
Cool, yep, the draft.
Cool catches up, but Neal, he's just in position right now. Neal, he's trying to set up for another stop, but Cool, does he get the read? The draft going to come? No, it doesn't. Neal breaks away with another nice cut, denies that final draft, and it will be tied 2-2. We will be going to a final track.
Cool might have had a better read on Neal today, but after this round, man, I can't really say. It feels like it could go either way.
Yeah, I mean, I think Neal decided to just focus on the mechanics itself, right? Not try to go for any big picture plan here. That's what put him back in favor here on Shanghai Circuit. So now we will find out on our last track of the KDL Season 1 Finals in solo races, Boom Hill Tunnel. One track, one lap left, only a couple minutes before we crown our very first champion, and it's between Neal from Lim Sandbox and Cool from the Guangdong Freaks.
This is the traditional rivalry that we know and love here in Kart Rider, as we see Neal taking the lead here, taking the tight line against that wall. As we take a look at the boost gauge, Neal has a slight advantage for the time being.
Yeah, and Cool, he tried to pressure Neal by going on the outer side, and Neal doesn't want to get caught off guard. Make sure he's pressuring Cool right back from the get-go, so Cool will have to wait for another opportunity. We enter the narrow sections here of Boom Hill Tunnel. One collision, and both of them could lose so much control. Neal just trying to go for these passive blocks, but he goes a little bit over-aggressive. Is able to recover right off of another boost.
Neal is playing so well right now. He's able to recover so well, and he's just constantly been playing defense against Cool, and he has managed it so far. Even the booster gauge, Neal is still ahead.
Yeah, here comes that jump. Now Cool not going to have the draft and boost combo to be able to jump the entire railing. He will just have to go for the same build, but Neal, the stop is not enough. Cool actually gets the draft right on time off of that block, and now he has the advantage. He has the better top speed as well. The
Neal,
Neal going for the straight boost, but it's not going to slow Cool down enough. I don't think he has an opportunity. Ladies and gentlemen, we are only 100 meters away from crowning Cool as our very first champion of the Kart Rider Drift League.
Man, what a beautiful season that Cool has had all year long, and to round it off with a champion title for himself when it matters most. In preseason 2, it was such a disappointing time for him, but now he can forget about all of that.
Yeah, when he wasn't able to enter the final 1v1s of preseason 2, a lot of fans said, well, it's not really going to matter much that you won preseason 1 if you keep dropping further and further. Sure, it was close, but you have to be able to do it when it matters. And Cool says, you know what, used to call me the Legend of the Ball. And he's sure maybe it was going to be Legend of the Preseason, but he comes back to say, no, this is going to be my game. I will rise as that champion, and Cool will be the first to write the history books of Kart Rider Drift League.
And such a well-deserved win for Cool here. He played such a good Kart Rider Drift tonight in the solos, maintaining a new playstyle that he's brought in of just trying to be consistent, and he was indeed the most consistent, finishing first in the group, and to beat Neal here to win his trophy, the first trophy of the KDL League. This is a phenomenal moment for Cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, your inaugural champion of the Kart Rider Drift League, it is going to be Cool from the Guangdong Freaks.
Man, you can see all the joy on Cool's face right now. He's worked so hard over the season, adapting to the new game, Kart Rider Drift, and now he is the first ever winner, the champion of our solos here.
Congratulations to Cool. We will have an opportunity to hear from the champion himself, the first one to carve his name into the history books of Kart Rider Drift. Ladies and gentlemen, it is your champion, Cool. And the interview will be translated by Peter.
Well, to be honest, when it comes to the solos finals, it's hard to see you, Cool, faltering. And now, once again, you were able to repeat some of those success here in the solos. How was today? To be honest, when it comes to player Neal, I said it earlier as well, but combining the pre-seasons, we've had 3 times fighting in 1v1, and so I also was super nervous, completely to the max, and I think that's why we had such a close match, and it made things more fun, and I'm especially happy I made it to the position of the winner. And as you can see in the final moment for Cool, we saw some nervousness on you, Cool, that it was such a tense moment for you, this battle, Cool, and this was not easy of a battle to predict. When did you feel like you might win this today? To be honest, when it came to the top 8, I had a lot of confidence, but when it comes to 1v1, something about the tracks, it was hard for me to choose tracks that I'm really confident at, but yeah, that's what really made things hard. Well, you say it was hard for you, but you had so many overwhelming moments where you were able to finish off the race in such a short amount of time, setting world records, and it made us feel like, yeah, this is the Cool we know, and Cool's probably going to win this season, but we can actually see that you were not confident, so it's a little bit weird to hear. Well, I felt like as long as I get first place in the top 8, that I'll be able to win. But since there's also a 1v1, I wasn't sure what would happen. Well, now we got to share this moment of victory with Cool, and this title of being the first victor of KDL Solos Finals, it's such a big title to have, right? It's hard for you, like it's overwhelming to have. But now you have this title in your hands. How do you feel about that? Well, for now I finally made it to the Royal Rotor list, so I'm really happy about that. And can there be anything better than that? I'm just so happy right now. Yeah, Cool. He managed to earn that hard-earned title of Royal Rotor. There's one more left for you. Well, you know, what can I say? There's one more impactful thing you need. What is it? Yeah, there's team match left for us, the Guangdong Freaks, and I'm gonna take the momentum from today, but actually forget that I was the winner and just focus on the team match, and I think we are gonna put off a good performance. Okay, we got to hear about the team performance for Cool as well, and now everyone, please give a round of applause to Cool, the champion of the Solos Finals tonight. And now we will continue on with our ceremonies. Please stay seated, ladies and gentlemen. 2023 Kart Rider Drift League, there were 32 players who have competed so fiercely throughout the year. And even today in the 1v1, it was so competitive that all our fans were just so impressed by what happened. But now we have the ceremony ready for you guys, the fans and the players. We have so many players in the KDL, and we want to thank them all for their amazing performance this year. And now we will begin the ceremony. First of all, we will start with the semi-finals winner, or the runner-up winner rather, of the competition, Neal.
Yeah, and it's going to be Neal with yet another runner-up finish. I mean, it's not going to feel great on his part. However, you got to give him props for his consistency, constantly getting into the final 8, and not just that, but the 1v1s in KDL. It almost feels like it's only a matter of time before he'll be able to lift the trophy up himself. However, today he will fall one track shy of being the only inaugural champion of the KDL. He will be taking away the prize money here for the runner-up title of the very first season of the Kart Rider Drift League.
Just as you put it, Will, not the result that Neal himself would have wanted, given that he's accomplished so much in the league already. But as you said, the runner-up is still a great position, and he managed to go to round 5 against Cool in top form, so that's a lot of good props for him.
Yeah, I mean, again, like you said, I love that you put it that way, Peter, is that when Neal looks at his own career, this isn't where he wants it to stop. But yeah, for us as fans, as commentators, and as viewers, you have to recognize things objectively. For him to be able to get this far into the solo finals every single time, again, it's just a matter of time. However, today, all eyes on the one and only inaugural champion of the KDL, and now finally getting a Royal Rotor title to himself as well. It's going to be Cool from the Guangdong Freaks, who lifts the very first trophy of the KDL.
This is the player we were most scared of coming into the solos finals tonight. The form that Cool has shown was like none other, and he showed such a great, phenomenal performance today. We saw some new techniques from him, and usually when players go for something brave like that, especially in a place like the finals, it can have drawbacks, but we didn't see any of that. Cool just played out of his mind today.
I think the biggest thing is what he mentioned in the interview himself, is that, you know, he wasn't quite sure until he was able to lift the trophy, right? He knew that there was still a 1v1. He recognized that he wasn't in the perfect form that he would like to see of himself. Sure, we thought he looked absolutely amazing with all those records in the round of 16. However, he wanted more. And ladies and gentlemen, that's not the end of the story here for Cool nor Neal, because they will have to face once again each other next week in the team match finals as we watch Cool try to go for the first ever double trophy of the KDL. That wraps it up for tonight. Thank you so much for joining us for the races as we crowned our inaugural champion, and we will see you all next week for the team match finals of Season 1 of the Kart Rider Drift League.